Hello there, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the previous session on healthcare. We're now going to move into another conversation about trust. You know, trust. Do you really trust that guy with your money? Do you really trust that doctor? Do you really trust that taxi? Jason Eisen is here. He is the founder and CEO of UTU. And UTU specializes in AI and blockchain solutions. And he'll talk a little bit about what it means to decentralize trust. Take it away, Jason.
Thanks so much, Nyanda. Thanks, guys, for having me. I'm super excited to be here and to talk about trust. So my title of my talk is Decentralizing Trust to Save the Internet. First, I guess we need to agree, maybe, does the internet need saving? I can introduce myself. I'm Jason. I'm the founder and CEO of UTU. We're based in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm coming to you live this morning from Nashville, Tennessee, though, spending a couple weeks with my family. And really excited to be talking at this event, though, and talking about decentralization of trust. All right, so does the internet need saving? Do we all agree? I would say that trust on the internet is totally broken. What's wrong with digital trust? Like, how safe do you feel when you go to buy something on the internet, whether it's something like a good on an e-commerce or a service, a nanny, a babysitter, a housekeeper, a coder, a taxi, maybe getting a loan or giving a loan on a decentralized platform or a peer-to-peer platform? All of these things contain some risk, and the mechanisms of trust that we have for understanding who we should do business with on the internet are totally antiquated and broken. So the way we see it, trust really has three problems right now. There's a theory of trust that is totally wrong. There's a mechanism of how trust is delivered on the internet that's totally wrong. And then the incentives for digital trust are all broken. The economic incentives are perverse. So I want to talk about each of these three things, and also where this comes from, the legacy, I would say what I would call the legacy of eBay and what they gave us in the 90s, and the dystopias that this might be leading us towards, and then what can be done. So let me start with the theory of trust. Trust is a very human concept, yet we have removed all of the humanity from it in our current design of digital trust mechanisms. So there's this assumption that trust is one size fits all, that it's universal, it's static and unchanging, that it's context irrelevant, that something like, 6 random people that you've never met and you have nothing in common with, and probably don't share their biases, their beliefs, their preferences, or their values. But according to those 6 random people, maybe this babysitter on the babysitter app is really great, and you should just go ahead and leave your 5-year-old with them. So this is not how trust works in the real world, nor is like a score, someone saying like, oh, this is a 7.3 trustable babysitter with a confidence interval of 80%. Like, what does that even mean? So if I ask you, who do you trust? I can predict your answer pretty easily. You'll say something like, I trust myself, I trust my family, I trust my friends. Okay, well, some of them, sometimes, for some things, right? So this is how real world trust works, based on relationships. Almost everybody answers like this. And we take this model of relationship-based trust and bring it to the internet, ignoring this one-size-fits-all static theory of trust for a kind of dynamic, personalized theory of trust based on you as an individual and your network of who you already trust. You could say that we're moving from a prescriptive model of digital trust, where we think we know best who everybody trusts and should trust, to a descriptive model, where we try to learn from each person about how they trust and serve that back to them with the best information we can at the right moment, in the right place, in the right way. always putting kind of the user in control of that whole process, as well as the privacy. So the second issue with trust is the mechanism. What do I mean by the mechanism? Well, trust is not a product, yet trust is currently sold as if it were. You have to go to platforms like TripAdvisor and Yelp and Trustpilot and Google reviews to essentially buy trust, right? But trust is not a product, it's an infrastructure. Eric Schmidt from Google said it, in a networked world, trust is our most important currency. That currency of trust, this infrastructure that underlies transactions, it needs to be served to us as infrastructure, not replicated by every single startup and or aggregated into these public-facing sites. The fact that these sites are public, that I can go and create one account and leave one fake review or one real review, or create 1,000 accounts and leave 1,000 fake reviews. I can manipulate anything I want. And while all these platforms will talk about the way they use AI to manage fraud, it doesn't systematically eliminate it. And it's a huge cost to the platforms, and that gets passed on to us. And it's a huge cost to our experience online and how safe we feel. So we're trying to move from trust as a product to trust as infrastructure, using it to deliver directly to the platforms to serve on to their consumers rather than making it a separate step in the journey. The final problem we see with digital trust is really around the incentives. There are no positive economic incentives for building trust online, yet there are positive economic incentives for manipulating trust. I can buy fake reviews, I can hire a bot army, I can do all sorts of manipulative things. And in the end, my product, my service will probably end up selling more based on these things. And whoever did this reputation farming or provided this bot army to me, and I paid them, they're also benefiting from the manipulation of trust. So we wanted to create a token model to essentially tokenize trust, to separate money and trust in a positive way. We wanted to be able to eliminate systematically people's ability to buy digital trust, and also to provide a mechanism that we can reward positive behaviors that build trust online, that facilitate good outcomes for people. So part of what drives us, I would say, is seeing some of the things that have emerged in the last few years, like the Chinese social credit scoring system. Maybe some of you have seen this episode of Black Mirror, the TV show, that paints this pretty awful dystopia around digital trust and some of the logical extensions of where these types of centralized systems are going or could go. And we think it's our mission, or part of our mission, to help paint a different vision of the future, an alternative vision of digital trust. So we started actually as MARAMOJA Transport. We were the first taxi app anywhere in Africa, started back in early 2013. And we realized in the process that we were solving the wrong problem. We were just solving the problem, how do I get a taxi? Which was the same problem every other taxi app was solving. But people in Nairobi, where we were founded, didn't have this problem. They had the problem, how do I get a taxi that I trust? And we started to optimize for this type of trust, for interpersonal trust, based on who people knew, and got great response. And this is essentially the birth of UTU, as we started to see the solution that we had built to solve our own problems around digital trust in this taxi app become obviously apparent, relevant in every other sector of the digital economy. People started coming to us saying, you know, we run a taxi app in this country and we have that same problem around trust, or we run a babysitter app, or an app for doctors, or an app for housekeepers, an app for lending, for insurance, for dating, for just about any service, coders, you name it. And all of them saying the same thing: we have a big problem with digital trust. Can you help us? So I would say, yeah, all hope is not lost. As gloomy as the current digital trust ecosystem might look, there is plenty that can be done and that we are doing. And there's a movement that we're trying to lead among people all over the world that care about digital trust to actually start working and continue working on what we've already built. to decentralize these systems. So one of the biggest issues is the centralization of a system like this, whether it's in the control of a government or even in our own control. Digital trust is a public good, and it needs to be insulated from any sort of actors that might have ulterior motives. So one of the main reasons that we're trying to decentralize this model to protect it for the long-term benefit of the general internet. So UTU, I could say, we believe in a more human-friendly internet, and we're pioneering these digital models of trust to make that vision a reality. Our mission is essentially to bridge the gap between how people trust in the real world and how they're asked to trust online. You could say our vision is to become the trust infrastructure of the entire internet, trying to make the internet a safer, more trusted place to gather, share, buy, sell, work, or trade, or do whatever it is you do on the internet. So we have an incredible ecosystem that we've already been able to put together. We were the first African investment for SoftBank Group's early stage AI fund, DeepCore, as well as Zeroth AI, and some great blockchain partners like Eternity and Elrond, newly announced partnerships with Matic Network and with Travala.com, which is pretty exciting, bringing UTU Coin to the global travel industry and integrating into the MARAMOJA Mobility Network that's growing across Africa and around the world. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you guys again for listening to me talk about digital trust. This is our passion, and I'm mostly here today to invite you to join us to be a part of this. We are looking for trust zealots and passionate people anywhere around the world that they may be. And so if you care about these things, like, please come join us. I'm happy to answer some questions.
Yes, thank you for that one, Jason. I really appreciate listening to this. I think the first time I heard anything about trust online was in terms of how to sort of kind of take trust out of the equation a little bit with blockchain and payments, and because if you're using something decentralized like blockchain, you have no third party to verify things. So this conversation is very, very interesting. I just want to let our viewers know that after this, we are going to have a little break. But first I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions that some of them have come in from our viewers.
Sure. Sure. On the trustlessness bit, this is a really important concept, because people do think about blockchains as being trustless, and indeed that's a main goal. And one of the things we often talk about is providing trust for the trustless. What I mean is that there's another human at the other end of those transactions oftentimes. And so while the value exchange may in fact be trustless, the service that you're getting in the real world, or the person that you're depending on to do something in the real world, is still, there's still an element of trust that has to be provided for there. And we're never going to see mainstream adoption of blockchain until we can kind of connect human experiences around trust to this digital trustlessness. Yeah.
Okay, understood. A little bit of a tongue-in-cheek question here. Why should we trust UTU to handle this?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually don't think anybody should just trust UTU. It's part of the reason why we're decentralizing all of this. It makes it open and transparent to everybody. They can see exactly what's happening with our protocol, what data is being shared, and who controls that data. Our goal is not the same as any of the 20th century internet companies that are today's giants that control our data. We don't want to own your data. We don't want to own anyone's data. We think people should own their own data. We believe in data as a human right. We want to build technology that lets them reclaim that data and put it in their own service of their own goals, and set rules about how it's accessed, and not some complicated like settings menu buried deep in the bowels of an application. No, like, this is a main feature. Taking control of your privacy is a feature it needs a magical, friendly UX that makes people want to and be able to feel like they can manage this and even benefit from that. in a better way. So yeah, decentralizing our whole system was basically to get around this question of why should people trust us? They don't need to trust us. They can trust exactly who they trust. We're just there to provide that information transparently.
That's a good point. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about family members of mine who shall remain unnamed, who I can't even get to use the ATM for fear of who's standing behind them. Can they trust the machine? Do they remember their PIN code? Mom. But so I wanted to ask you, how do you translate AI-based AI-based and blockchain solutions into a user-friendly platforms, especially for the less tech-savvy?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. And we don't usually focus too much on the tech behind what we do when we're talking to the general public, because it doesn't matter. They don't care, right? This is a tech summit, so maybe a little bit more appropriate to talk about kind of the AI models that we're building and the blockchain protocol that we're building. But I think to really answer your question, it's about the UXs that we're innovating. So things like, okay, how do we consume trust right now? Mostly it's these like pseudonymous reviews that are aggregated on review portals. And we have no idea, is it the owner's cousin that wrote that review? Is it some bot? Is it some review farm? Who are these reviews from? And why should I care? And again, it's like this long bit of text, which we're not even using our computers mostly anymore. We're probably on our phone. So who's even going to take the time to thumb out some long text review? So we're trying to update the experience with things like introducing video selfie reviews. You want to record feedback? Just hold your phone up and talk about what it is that you liked or didn't like about the service. Imagine the impact that has for the viewer of the review, especially if the viewer of that review is your friends and family, to see from your mouth that this is what you felt about the service and that there's no way that we faked this or this is some fake review, right? So part of it is about changing those mechanisms, going from just like these text reviews to video content to more nuanced badging. Because we're a third-party service and infrastructure provider, our goal is not to sell you the most stuff, it's to deliver the most trust. So it means we have no incentive to hide bad information about a service the way other platforms would. And so we're going to present the good, the bad, and the ugly, filtered through your network of relevance and what matters to you. And we'll say things like, we'll never say, you should trust this babysitter. He or she has a score of this. We'll say something like, 5 of your friends on Facebook and 2 of your phone book contacts, including Mary, Susan, Tim, Steve, and Bob, have used this nanny 52 times in the last 6 weeks, giving them badges for great cook, good with infants, and always reliable, and recording this video testimonial talking about their experience. And you can watch them right there. And imagine that when that recommendation, when those endorsements actually help someone get a good outcome and find the right babysitter or the right loan or the right doctor, those recommendations actually earn the recommender money. So there's a positive benefit to the person who's endorsing to endorse good services, but likewise a penalty in tokens when they endorse a bad service and someone disapproves of it. So there's a game theoretical model that people don't really need to understand. They just need to understand that by building trust and making good recommendations, they can actually earn money.
Interesting. So then I thank you for that, because then you gave a concrete example of how you're going to incentivize positive behavior, which is what you were talking about before.
Absolutely.
I want to wrap 2 questions into one, the last one. One is, do you ever feel like you're fighting a losing battle, with this trust issue, given that there's so much online that potentially can damage people's ability to trust in doing transactions online? That's one. And then separately, a lot of these issues bring up, of course, privacy policy, data privacy policies, and data privacy issues, which you've touched on. And what is your view of the privacy policies of the likes of the Googles and the Facebooks? Should people be looking to use other platforms? What are your thoughts on that, really quick?
Sure. Do I feel like we're fighting a losing battle? I don't know. I guess being a startup is embracing the feeling of fighting a losing battle. You're always an underdog as a startup, but I don't actually feel that way. I feel more like we're tackling a massive problem that the world is starting to feel more and more. And the fact that maybe it looks like a losing battle is the biggest case for why UTU is so necessary right now. We've been working on this for years, and it seems like the kind of market has caught up to the tech we've been building, and there's been this huge explosion of demand for it. So from where we sit, we feel more excited than ever about it. And sorry, your second question was about privacy
yeah,
and
for the Googles and the Facebooks, do you think
yeah, I'm not gonna.
you're
I won't really comment on my thoughts about what others do. I'll say we believe in data as a human right, in privacy as a right, in people's right to own and control their data and put it in service of their own goals. And everything that we're doing is basically to make that a reality and give people that alternative to these other things.
all right? Thank you so much, Jason, again
Thank
for
you.
that
This is really cool. I'm
presentation.
so
Yeah.
happy.
And for all of us, the viewers here on, we're going to move on to the next session, which will be on how to funding your enterprise, exits, and M&A. So stay tuned. Thank you all again. All right, bye-bye.
Thanks so much.